Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I want to talk about some worlds I would like to see not just in Kingdom Hearts 4, but I believe we would see going forward in the Kingdom Hearts series. Obviously, I'm really motivated. I mean, I should have done this video a long time before now, but obviously I've recently been playing through most of the Kingdom Hearts games again, so that's really kind of got me thinking. And obviously, I'm sure a lot of stuff on my list is stuff that's on other people's lists, but just certain things, having played through specifically Kingdom Hearts 3 again, kind of got me thinking about like, oh yeah, there's some very specific worlds I could definitely see happening. Maybe, once again, not just in 4, but most likely like at some point in the Kingdom Hearts game, future Kingdom Hearts games. The element I completely forgot about is the new 7 princesses of Heart. So the fact of the matter is the original 7 have kind of served their purposes, so I could definitely see those worlds not popping up again like an Agrabah or Beast Castle. Besides, like Beast Story has been told to its completion. Maybe Wonderland as well, so probably no Alice. So like all those princesses' stories are done because they've served their purposes and they've kind of all got their happily ever afters, I think. Let me run through like my new 7 Princesses of Heart worlds I could definitely see popping up. First and foremost, there's Arendelle, because obviously there's more story to tell there, because obviously your journey through there the first time in Kingdom Hearts 3 was just telling the story of Frozen 1. I've never seen Frozen 2, so I don't know the ins and outs of that story, but I do, since there is a Frozen 2, there is more story that could be adapted into Kingdom Hearts. Plus, Elsa and Anna were kind of referenced by Marluxia and I'm confused. I'm confusing that for a different thing. It's Larxene, about them both being princesses of Heart. So I think they both. I don't think they count as one. I think they are 2 separate. So I would assume there's going to be 5 others beside them. I definitely see Arendelle returning just for the purposes of what. I mean, it could always be a possibility that both Elsa and Anna return without you actually going to Arendelle, but I would assume just because there already is a Frozen 2 that they would like leap on that, but I could be wrong. Maybe this is there's a clearer answer for this, but I'm unsure about the whole Rapunzel situation, because she might still be a princess of Heart even without her hair like being magical and stuff like that, because I do know there are future stories. I know there was like a TV show that was a continuation of Tangled, and do correct me if I'm wrong, like doesn't she ever get her hair back to some extent? I don't remember. I don't think she does. I think it's obviously all post the movie, so her hair is cut and it's lost its magical power, but I think it's still within her to be a princess of like Heart and, you know, one of the new princesses. So I think she's still on the board, but maybe she was removed from the board now that her hair is cut. I mean, that still has to deal a lot with who she is on her insides and like her heart, so I think she can still be that brilliant princess, like brilliant light that as a princess of Heart even without like the magic of her hair, you know. So I'm still keeping that as a maybe. Obviously there's the whole Wreck-It Ralph world with Vanellope, because I actually because I haven't seen the movie in so long, I completely forgot she was a princess, and the only reason why that kind of got registered in my brain again is because that world actually pops up in Union Cross as one of the worlds you go to. But I could definitely see, because obviously a lot of those worlds in that are worlds like Sora's already been to too, and they still kind of tell the stories of those worlds. So I could definitely see it being a situation of like, right, Sora's adventure through that story. So it could easily be a situation of you replaying through the story of Wreck-It Ralph. I mean, especially considering he was also a summon in 3 as well. So I don't know correlation between like that point in the story when it came to Union Cross versus like, because I don't know when that came out in correlation with, like, I'm sure 3 was done to some extent story-wise of what they wanted to be and what they wanted to include in it, so they was probably already aware about the Wreck-It Ralph angle of it. But even if they don't adapt Wreck-It Ralph 1, I could definitely see them doing kind of like what they did with Monsters Inc. and Big Hero 6 and make it kind of like a pseudo sequel. Not necessarily Wreck-It Ralph 2, because we know there is a Wreck-It Ralph 2. It could easily just be like a kind of an in-between story that they created specifically for the game, like I said, just like they did in 3 with Monstropolis and San Francisco. So I'd also include Brave. It's a movie I haven't seen, but I do know like Merida is a princess, so I could definitely see that being, and that's probably a world where you probably wouldn't change either. It'd probably be I could definitely see like a similar like vibe of the world kind of being something close to like Rapunzel's world. I could see it kind of like a similar, little bit probably of a fill-in vibe. Once again, I'm also talking about that from the perspective of I've never seen the movie. I know bits and pieces about the plot, but that's about it. But yeah, she is a princess, so I could definitely see Merida her world popping up in the future. And once again, I'm making all these assertions because, like, obviously when we got introduced to the original 7 Princesses of Heart, there was only 2 that Sora ran into over the course, well, 3 because if you count Kairi, but there's only 3 he got to know. The others were already captured by Maleficent over that like 10-year period in between Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1. So I doubt they do that again. I think it is, you probably, just like you got introduced to these pseudo new princesses apart, like Elsa and Anna and Rapunzel in 3, I could definitely see it being a thing of like, you're most likely going to go to their worlds. There's the whole Tiana situation, so I could definitely see a princess in the frog world. I could actually see that world being like a combination of Pride Rock, the Pride Lands meets Castle of Dreams. And now in the sense of Ventus's version, because obviously Aqua gets shrunk down as well, but Ventus is the only one that's small like that. So I could definitely see it being a situation of, yeah, like you're small and maybe you're transforming an animal, hence why I reference like Pride Lands. So I could see like, you know, especially if, you know, Tiana getting transformed into a frog, you're helping her, and Sora, Donald, and Goofy don't necessarily have to be frogs, but maybe they could be something on that same similar scale or something like that, you know? I mean, maybe Sora is a rat, but I could see that kind of being a different world. We'll get to that later, but I think that's a strong possibility. I could definitely see that world popping up. The one I'm also putting another asterisk beside is Kairi, whether or not she counts as one of the 7 new princesses of Heart. And maybe this is something that got answered because I haven't played the game after KH3, the Melody game. I haven't played that, so I think there's going to be some story beats there, but I don't know how much of like any of my questions have gotten answered. Maybe by the time I get to that, like, you know, because this video is probably going to go up sometime next week, so I might have some answer like after I record this video. But I'm curious that she technically, if she still counts as one of the 7 Princesses of Heart, because she is one of the OGs, and she's also a Keyblade wielder, so she's also one of the Guardians of Light, so it kind of puts her in that role where she's still active in that role, so I could definitely see her still feeling that vibe. But I'm also curious, it could be that she could end up having a replacement, you know? I don't know. I'm curious, if, like, could there be, well, because I'm also thinking, like, not unless it could be, like, Marluxia's sister, Strelitzia, like, it could be her. Like, she could easily end up being one, because, you know, now that I'm more well-versed in, like I said, the, Union Cross stuff, I now recognize, like, oh, that's Marluxia's sister. Like, I thought that's who she was, but I was confusing her with one of the Lost Masters. Like, I was like, oh, is her name Ava? It's like, no, Ava's one of the Lost Masters. Strelitzia, I'm probably butchering her name, it's Marluxia's sister, and I know that she was in the trailer for KH4, so, like, now, like, I could, since she's kind of back in the picture, in that regard, I could, you know, and I'm sure Sora's going to end up helping her get out of that world, you know, so it could be a situation that we have her returning, and she could kind of fill that void, kind of similar, like maybe she ends up replacing Kairi in that regard. But some other worlds that could be on my list is Ratatouille. Yes, you got Ratatouille in 3, but you didn't actually go to his world. I mean, very much similar to, like, obviously, like, previously Simba and Mushu were summons, and eventually they became, you actually got to go to their world, and so I mean, it's not a summon thing, but he's like just a mini game thing. And yeah, it's similar to his story, but I've never seen Ratatouille all the way. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but never sat down and watched the whole movie. So I don't know what that really encases, but I could definitely see that being a world, but maybe because they've used it in the regard that they have, maybe they don't feel the need to. I'm also curious, I was thinking about this earlier, what about Olympus Coliseum? Like, they've told that story in its entirety, so, I mean, because that world has always been a staple in the Kingdom Hearts games, you know, especially because of the whole Coliseum element of it, you know. Obviously, 3 is, like, the only time it never really served, like, a Coliseum-esque aspect to it, so I wonder, would they return to that in some previous games, or in some future games, or will it be another Disney world that kind of fills that void, or will they kind of do what they did with Birth by Sleep and just kind of give you, like, how you had the Mirage Arena in Birth by Sleep, like, what they kind of brought something back like that. I mean, because in Dream Drop Distance they had those little Battle Link portal things, you know, testing out, like, you know, those were like the closest thing you got to tournaments, and the same thing in that kind of got brought back in KH3, so those kind of replaced any, like, form of a tournament to some extent. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see like which route they'd go with that. It'd be nice to have Olympus come back, but I'd assume like obviously going forward it'd just be original stories. So they might feel the need to just go like, no, let's just pick another like Disney World to kind of fill that void to some extent. It'd be interesting if Tron was still to return, just because of obviously what it means to Sora. Obviously, like his journey with him, Donald and Goofy's journey with Tron during KH2 and Space Paranoids, but also ending up in that world again in Dream Drop Distance and having woken that world now from its sleep. I'm so curious to see, especially because of the way things ended for Sora and Tron. I think it'd be nice to have a continuation of that. I know there is a future Tron game in the work. I mean, a future Tron movie in the works, but I don't know if there'd be any correlation. I could easily see it being kind of its own thing, or maybe that's something they just don't cover either for right now, or that gets saved for like super further in the future. I don't know. It feels like to me, I mean, I'm probably not, you know, if I probably took time, I could probably like think longer on it, but for now it seems like those are the only ones I feel like that could have any possibility of returning of like original worlds. I mean, like obviously there's always a possibility for Twilight Town, like because it's become such a staple. I mean, same thing for Traverse Town, especially how that works. I was more so specifically talking about the Disney worlds. It feels like those would probably be the only ones that would return. I don't even know if they used Winnie the Pooh going for it either. I don't know. Maybe there'd be like some small references to it, but maybe not even making it a world. I mean, kind of, because in 3, it's mainly just, I mean, it's always been the minigame world, but even more so condensed in KH3, so, I don't know. But I could definitely see like Radiant Garden return, especially because it was a place in 3, but you never actually got to go there. Especially considering that is like Kairi's home, and that's obviously the home to a lot of Final Fantasy characters. Kind of, I think that'd be probably a pretty important world to bring back. And obviously, speaking on that front, well, because of Dream Drop Distance, you got introduced to the world ends with you characters, so I could definitely see that potentially being a world, especially because like Sora and Riku made friends with Neku in them, so it could definitely be, I could see that being a world that like kind of like, well, because I was about to say returns, but it's like you never actually went to that world, you met him in Traverse Town. So I'm such an idiot. There's also Toy Story that could also come back. San Francisco, maybe, you know, you could kind of continue to do more superhero stuff, but I feel like San Francisco, maybe they've told the story they want to tell there, but I mean, you never know. But obviously there's multiple Toy Story movies that they could always pull from and adapt for the future, so I could definitely see Sora running into like Woody and Buzz and all of them yet again in the future. So I think that's kind of a possibility. Maybe Monstropolis, but I don't know. Those are the other ones, like I said, I can think of right now off the top of my head. Maybe, like I said, given them more time, maybe I could think of some others. But those feel like, especially because they're the ones, or they're the more recent ones from 3, that you could definitely see possibly returning. So, I mean, I don't know if they'd go through the trouble of adapting the rest, because there's at least 2 more Pirates of the Caribbean movies that they could utilize. I mean, I don't know if they time skip that much, because I know, was it 4, was it 5, that deals with Will's son. So like, I know that'd involve like a major time skip, and I don't know if they'd incorporate, like, obviously like Sora would be about the same, so I don't know if they'd incorporate that. I mean, every world kind of moves on its own axis in its own time frame, so like it wouldn't be affecting them too much if it's that much time has passed in this world. So that's a possibility. I've never seen the movie, but I could definitely see an Inside Out working as a world. That'd be really, really interesting. It makes you wonder what kind of emotions that Sora, Donald, and Goofy would be represented by. Maybe a Coco, another movie I haven't seen. I don't know if they'd go down the Cars route or not. That'd be really interesting. I mean, especially because we have like done the whole like ride situation with the attraction summons you got in 3. So I don't know. And maybe that'd be too far out there to kind of apply to a Kingdom Hearts game. I don't know. Obviously, and you also get into the territory of the big worlds that people want, that being, hey, Marvel and Star Wars. I'd be so curious where they would start in Star Wars. Obviously, they'd most likely start with the original series. I mean, I guess they could always like jump straight to the sequel trilogy at this point in time. I could definitely see them doing that just because that's more modern, and that might be a lot of people's more because of the recency of it, I can see that being a thing. But I could also easily see them doing like the original trilogy as well. I think people would probably maybe appreciate their original trilogy more. Who knows? I mean, maybe it's like with the sequel trilogy, like it probably would fit like for the battles and stuff like that to be like, obviously those are like more like a lot heavier, maybe action wise. I think, or just like what is possible in that world has expanded so much. And the end of the Skywalker trilogy with like 7, 8, and 9, so maybe that would fit better with a Kingdom Hearts style. Like I don't know, but also like obviously Sora's Keyblade being a lightsaber would be pretty dope. I mean, he already kind of does some Jedi stuff too. I mean, granted, he doesn't like. I mean, one of his techniques is the strike ray technique of bringing his Keyblade back to himself by making. So like you could definitely like lean into that, especially with like the power of the Force and everything, and kind of like Strength of Heart could really lean into a lot of those aspects. So I don't know. It'd be so fascinating to see like how they would handle that. And then once again, I could easily see that not being like, oh, like, I mean, obviously one movie could easily be just one game, but I don't know. Not unless they do the KH2 thing of like you revisit the worlds like in the second half of the game type of thing. I don't know. Obviously those will be heavily condensed. I don't know. That's my issue with the Marvel stuff, because I'm like, it'd be so hard to like heavily condense that. I guess truth be told is I think the easiest thing to do, and you'd have to jump right in the middle of it, would have to be like Avengers. Like you'd have to do like an Avengers thing of like, yeah, Iron Man, Cap, like all of the Avengers are there, and I feel like that would probably have to be how you'd approach that. Like it wouldn't be an individual movie like, oh, you met Iron Man. It's like, because you kind of get into that because I could definitely see that being a very large commitment and complicated, because that's an entire universe, and like you'd have to scale that down a lot. So I feel like Avengers would be the easiest entry point without having to go through the trouble of going to every you just jump in the middle of this world where superheroes exist. I mean, especially because of Sora, Donald, and Goofy's experience in San Francisco, and being was it Keyblade Hero? Or is it Keyblade Hero 3 is like the name they gave themselves? So I could definitely see that being a thing. Like, oh, you're the Avengers, we're Keyblade Hero 3, and Donald being like, I told you, me and Goofy don't have Keyblades. That name doesn't make sense, you know? So like, I definitely see them kind of joking with that a little bit, kind of continuing that for like when they meet up. So I feel like Star Wars is a little bit more doable in my opinion than Marvel. I feel like, I mean, it would depend on the approach, and maybe because of that whole element of it, they probably would want to stay away from just how complicated that would be. Because it's like, how do you approach that in future games? Like, you know, would you make those individual heroes? Like, I mean, would you jump to like, after doing like, oh, like you only do the Avenger movie, so you go like, oh, Avengers, and then Age of Ultron, and then Infinity War and Endgame. It's like, you know what I mean? Dude, an Endgame into Kingdom Hearts would be nuts. That'd be bananas, but you know, so that's that complicated thing of like, I can see a Marvel thing being even more difficult to really, the complexity of kind of getting that, like how you'd have to go about introducing that and like what stories you would adapt. I don't see them necessarily making, because I'm sure you'd have to jump through a lot of hoops to make original stories. Because obviously I'm sure Kevin Feige would have some saying like, whoa, you're going to do what with the MCU characters? You know, so that'd probably have to be a whole conversation too. So, I don't know. I just feel like that seems like the most, like I said, it feels like Star Wars is a lot more plausible in my head than Marvel, because I feel like that'd just be so complicated to do just because of like how massive that universe is, and it'd be hard to kind of scale that down. Once again, an Avengers 1 movie, sure, you could do that, but going forward, any future use of that universe, how'd you go about it? I don't know. But obviously, these are just my thoughts. I know everyone has their list of potential worlds they like to see or believe we'll get to see in the next, you know, set of Kingdom Hearts games. And these are just mine. Do you agree with some of my list? Do you disagree? Because I'm sure there's a lot of overlap between my list and everyone else's list. But like, you know, what are your thoughts? I'm sure there's plenty of worlds I left off that you're like, Michael, you idiot. Why didn't you say this world? Because I'm not thinking. Like I said, I'm recording this video and taking time to think. I'm sure if I like really, because I wrote a lot of stuff down, but there's still so much that, you know, is a gap in my Disney / Pixar knowledge, plus there's probably stuff I'm just once again even Kingdom Hearts wise not thinking about, you know, during this recording. So let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.